Hello, I'm Doc Sanders. You can't pick up a newspaper or watch television without hearing the buzz about our carbon footprint on planet Earth. The mandate established by the Kyoto Treaty calls for industries in developed nations to reduce the amount of carbon they emit into the atmosphere. Not just a little bit, but ultimately by 80%. Developing nations are exempt. One example of reducing the carbon footprint is American Electric Power's plan to gain carbon credits by providing environmental solutions for dairy farms. By funding manure slurry lagoon equipment to trap methane and carbon dioxide on dairy farms, AEP plans to subtract the resulting decrease in carbon units released at the farms from the total emissions of AEP's power plants. This supposedly reduces the company's net environmental impact or carbon footprint. And this is apparently copacetic because of the Kyoto Treaty. Cows themselves are the subject of another measure aimed at eliminating the methane that they release into the atmosphere as a result of their digestive process. Through fermentation in the rumen, they contribute to the Earth's total methane release that accounts for an estimated 2 to 14% of the carbon footprint. Australian researchers have discovered that the digestive system of the kangaroo uses microorganisms that do not produce methane. So they're studying how to transfer those microorganisms to cows to create clean-burning bovines. Wouldn't it be easier to develop a taste for kangaroo steaks? And milking a kangaroo could be another matter. The Greenies recommend that each of us do our part for planet Earth by planting trees to offset the greenhouse effect and global warming. While we should be concerned about the environment, are we putting ourselves in jeopardy by adopting principles, policies, and plans that are debatable and not fully proven? For his book on global warming, An Inconvenient Truth, Al Gore won the Nobel Peace Prize, putting him in the illustrious company of previous winners such as Kofi Annan and Yasser Arafat. But there are a number of highly respected scientists who question his allegations about the purported threat of global warming. 100 such scientists signed a letter published late last year in major print and electronic media contending that global warming is not cause for alarm. They wrote, and I quote, "In stark contrast to the often repeated assertion that the science of climate change is settled, significant new peer-reviewed research has cast even more doubt on the hypothesis of dangerous human-caused global warming." End quote. The media has chosen to ignore the points raised by these experts while hyping Gore's message of hysteria and fear. Climatologists have proven that global warming and subsequent cooling has occurred 900 times in the past 1 million years. That is, every 1,500 years. Significant evidence exists that Vikings and other early settlers grew crops in the far north, in Greenland and Canada. However, by the 14th century, evidence shows that Greenland had, after a fertile 1,000-year period, become environmentally unsuitable for crop production. The reason? A 1.5 Celsius drop in temperature. That's a more drastic swing to the negative side than the upswing global warming advocates claim will occur over the next 50 years. Barring Al Gore's title phrase, let's look at some inconvenient truths about the efficacy of reducing our carbon footprint as called for in the Kyoto Treaty. Planting new forests for new trees to count towards reducing our carbon footprint as an offset for the treaty, the trees must have been planted since 1990 on land that had been treeless for at least 50 years. No more than 25 million acres of unforested U.S. land meets this qualifier and are likely to be planted in trees. But even 25 million acres of new forest, the equivalent of about 1/4 of Maine's landmass, will offset only about 2% of the annual CO2 emissions. And that's assuming none of the new forests catch fire and release more carbon into the environment. Using corn ethanol, which produces a net gain of 50 gallons of gasoline per acre against a whopping demand of 134 billion gallons annually. That's a drop in the tank. Solar energy. This won't make a dent in the carbon balance because too many areas of the United States get too little sunshine. Nor will wind turbines solve the energy crisis or adequately shrink our carbon footprint. A mandate that the United States and other affluent nations must give up 80% of energy sources that emit carbon into the environment. How likely is that to happen? And even if it could, developing nations, which are free from Kyoto's restrictions, can go on building old technology power plants. More hybrid cars that get 40 miles per gallon compared to conventional vehicles that get 18 to 25 miles per gallon. Buying a Prius may salve your conscience, but the only way we can make a real dent in the emissions debit is for all of us to trade in our cars for bicycles. We have a bright future ahead of us if we get past the negative hype from the media and the environmental fearmongers and elect government officials who operate on high-octane common sense. First, we need to accept that global warming is inevitable. It is a natural cycle that has happened on Mother Earth about 900 times in the last million years. And we need to realize that we already have available an alternative source of energy that is unencumbered by issues related to the carbon footprint. With current technology, nuclear power is a safe, environmentally friendly alternative that reduces carbon output. France gets 80% of its electricity from reactors. Finland has a nuclear plant. Eastern Europe is planning dozens. China and India are each shooting for 30 plants over the next 15 years. Go ahead and plant a tree. It will give you a warm, fuzzy feeling, but count on harnessing nuclear power and kangaroo flatulence to carry the day.
Down the Road is brought to you in part by Prince Agra, makers of Omnigen AF, advancing animal nutrition for healthy animals, and Woodruff Enterprise of Springfield, Ohio.